Oh, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's PodiumX Series discussion. The Lead Incubator and Startup Accelerator, or LISA, was founded by Stanford GSP lead participants for the lead community. It's an ecosystem for innovators and startup founders, and it's the first hybrid platform for incubating ideas to MVP and then scaling those ventures globally. The PodiumX Series is our curated engagement platform designed within LISA, focused on founders, venture capital, industry, thought leadership, emerging tech, and the products ecosystems. My name is Edward Munt. I'm a founding partner at LISA. Let me introduce the rest of our partners. Today we have joining us Deepti Pawa, who will be facilitating our discussion. She's based in Switzerland. We also have Hira Dango, who's in the Bay Area. And also two other founders. We have Joe Anthony, who lives in Sydney, Australia, as well as Misha Baikov, who's based in Silicon Valley as well. I'd like to thank each one of you, today's speakers, Stanford GSB lead and rebuild team members for supporting today's event. Today's panel discussion is focused on business growth via innovation, not only at the product level, but also forging new ideas and reimagining business operations and management tools and models. We're very fortunate to have some really great participants today. First, let me introduce Victor de Avila, who's the Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer at SACYR, Ricardo Perez Font, VP of Marketing and Product Management at Invacare Corporation, and Priyanka Rayamaji, who's the Design Manager at Pinterest. And with that, I'll ask DT to go ahead and get us started on the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Edward, for this introduction. And I'm really happy to take this conversation forward with three of our panelists today. And we talk more about finding that sweet spot of innovation using design as a tool to include focus on human values and creating new business opportunities. And like Edward already mentioned about Priyanka Rayamaji, who's also who's working as a product design manager at Pinterest. She has over 12 years of digital design experience and has been focusing on helping businesses on board and find success on Pinterest platform. She's living in San Francisco. Ricardo, working with Invacare, is a leader in manufacturing of home care medical equipment like wheelchairs, mobility scooters, respiratory products. He's based in Switzerland, and he has more than 20 years of experience in medical devices and also consumer goods industry. And he's also in the past worked with Kraft Foods, Mondelez, as well as Yves Rocher. And Victor, like Edward said, that he's the Chief Strategy and Innovation Officer at SACYR. He's based in Spain, and currently he's transitioning into his new entrepreneurial journey. And he's a CEO at Stereo Technologies. His business is a result of acceleration of innovation during COVID times, and I'm certain will resonate with the journey of a lot of us here today on the call. He's venturing into medical equipment space. And as well as he is, many of you might already know him, Victor is also a Stanford GSB lead alumni. And I've had the pleasure of very inspiring interactions with him in the past Stanford events as well. So thanks for being here, all three of you. It's a pleasure to have you. So let's just maybe begin with each of you kind of talking about your own role in the organizations that you're working with. And let's start with Priyanka. Would you like to start first?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. So yeah, I am a product design manager at Pinterest for our business growth and advertiser success teams. So what we primarily focus on is one, helping our businesses just connect with their audience on the platform. And we also work with helping businesses also find success navigating our platform, as well as working with the sales team on revenue growth objectives and other objectives as well.
Thank you. Ricardo, would you like to go next?
Yes. So, I mean, well, thank you very much, Deti, for inviting me to this meeting. So, I am Vice President Marketing and Product Management in Embarker Corporation. We are selling a lot of different products, especially home care medical devices, from respiratory products, beds, walkers, chairs, all kind of products. And the role that I have in the organization, I would say that is to create profit, okay, or to create additional business, is to observe the market, to identify where are the opportunities in the market to create value, okay, and to make the organization move in this direction to be able to deliver this value. And to do that in more than 45 different countries all around Europe and North America, and to do that in a lot of different categories. So I would say that the role that I have is essentially create value in the organization.
Great, thank you, Ricardo. Victor, would you like to go next? Victor, you're on mute. You'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I have my role as a corporate innovator is I'm the Chief Strategy and Corporate Innovator of Saussure. Saussure is an infrastructure company based in more than 30 countries and $4 billion in revenue. And it's divided in 4 different business units: infrastructure, industrial construction, services, and concessions. And my role as a corporate innovator is to define the corporate strategy and help the businesses to think differently in order to identify pain points and bring to from the outside companies that might help us to solve those challenges. That's one role. Yeah, my other role is as an entrepreneur. As Dipti was was mentioning before, I am right now launching. I have 4 startups, and in different spaces, from waste to energy solutions up to post-COVID hygienization products for the for several industries, particularly in the hospital and health industry.
Thank you, Victor. So maybe the very first one, maybe I'll start with the Pinterest and Priyanka. So like I'm personally an avid user of Pinterest, and I really see it as a catalog of ideas. And I believe many people in the audience also are using Pinterest as well. And it's such a simple idea. Just a ping board, right? And Pinterest was launched in 2010, and 9 months after the launch of the website, there were 10,000 users, and today we have more than 300 users, right? So I think one of the things that most of our innovators right now in Rebuild journey are also facing is to find out about that simple idea that is actually coming from the latent unmet need of the people, right? So what, according to you, was that unmet need that Pinterest, kind of identified, and how, maybe if you have a little bit insight about how Pinterest went about starting that, that'll be great.
Yeah, so I think, so now we have 400 million users. We just announced that this week, which is really exciting, just to see incredible growth on our platform, not just on like our consumer side, but also on the business side. So that's been a really big success. I think, with Pinterest, we really focus on meeting unmet needs for our users, especially through inspiring people through action. I know that when I was getting married, I used Pinterest a lot to really like curate what would my wedding experience look like, not just for me, but for my guests, etc. And so I think just, the primary purpose was really just to say, hey, what am I trying to dream about? What are the new possibilities? Being able to envision it, create a mood board essentially of these things. It could even be for your everyday if you're trying to, you know, create a new recipe or get into cooking. I know I'm bad at cooking right now during COVID time. So like, what can I make quickly? So I think thinking about that, especially now, given this, you know, current situation, I'm working from home until I don't know when. And so really thinking about how I can find inspiration through that has been a huge success for Pinterest. So we're constantly really trying to map like those needs there. We're focused on really trying to shorten that loop of inspiration to action and finding opportunities from like a business perspective there.
Right. So, I mean, what you're really saying is that basically empowered people in the act of designing itself, right? And that was the unmet. It was, at least at that point in time, there was not much available, right, in the market. So, carrying on that information, that conversation also to the other businesses that we are kind of talking about. You know, it's really about finding that unmet need. Ricardo, I mean, I know that in Invacare you're working on a lot of different products and products that I have been personally, you know, involved with and also known about more is, let's say, which is like a program that revolutionized the industry, right? And the form and the function, the design, performance, quality. People do not know about Kushal. They should go and have a look at what they're doing. And the other one is I think, about bariatric wheelchair that Invacare worked on, right? The Ampler. Would you like to talk about, you know, this, again, finding this unmet need to build a business? I mean, how do you get to that point? And yeah,
I think that the challenge that we have is to find the meet needs, but also is to find better solutions for the needs. No, so I mean, one good example is Amplan. So just to explain a bit the frame of reference, Invacare is a company that makes medical devices, especially for disabled people and for aged people. So in this case, what we found in the market was that there was one type of disabled people that was the bariatric, the very obese people, that the solution that they had in the market were quite old solutions. I mean, there was just wheelchairs that were more or less the same design that in the 50 or the 60 years. So that means that products that were very, very quite old in the market. So I think that the key challenge for finding the meet needs is the observation, is to go to the market, to spend time with the users and to see where is the pain point. And I think that this is quite rewarding, because I mean, when you see a pain point and you see that a person is really spending a very bad moment with the wheelchair because the wheelchair is too big or too small or is not really designed for him, and you see that with one or two small changes you can improve the life of this person, it's really a great moment. So answering your question, I think that the unmet needs is found through observation, and working very closely with the users.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, this is what we are also, really at Stanford as well, to really observe the users and kind of, derive at their need before we are actually designing the product itself. To that take, I mean, I would say, you have a lot of stories from Sasser, but what would really be interesting for our audience today is the new venture that you were talking about, the waste management, the infectious waste management at hospitals, as well as the robot that you have designed and, kind of working with. That will be interesting for people to know, how did you get to those ideas, and how did you find the unmet need? Victor? You'll have to unmute yourself again. Victor, we don't hear you. You'll have to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
Sorry, I forgot. So the question is, do you want me to tell the story about those robots and things like that? Okay. Well, sorry?
How did you reach the unmet of your consumers? The
Okay.
need.
Well, yeah, the need, how to identify it. I have a business, a startup that provides solutions to hospitals that are to turn their biological infected waste into regular waste in the same hospital. This is a very disruptive solution because most of the hospitals in the world basically hire waste managers companies, and they come and pick up, their waste and take it into plants. And what we do is we basically bring into the hospital a mini plant, and it's managed by them, and with the containers and all the bags are included in there. So in that way, they basically become their own waste managers. What happened is that during the coronavirus crisis, the total amount of waste generated by hospitals multiplied by 6, and the waste managers or waste management providers weren't able to fulfill this demand. And what was happening is that not only the hospitals needed to deal with a number of, very sick people there, and most of the hospitals were crowded, but also they were generating so much waste, they were not able to handle it, and they were basically accumulating it in rooms, and that was very, I would say, very dangerous because it was not regular waste. It was waste contaminated with COVID. So we start to think, I don't know if you have heard this has happened also in other countries. I'm convinced that for elderly houses, we find out that it was even a larger problem, because this kind of institutions didn't generate hazard waste. But during the crisis, they were generating hazard waste. Every single thing that was touched by the people, elderly people, was potentially contaminated by COVID. Taking into account that in some of these elderly houses, the number of infections was 70%, 80%, 90%. So that meant that most of the people were potentially infected, and the waste that they were generating was potentially infected as well. And if it was not treated, it went into the regular stream of waste management, and that stream is not prepared, was not prepared. It is not prepared still to manage that kind of waste. So basically, we identified that pain point for that particular segment, and we started to see what can we do in order to provide a cheaper solution than in hospitals, because it's not the same volume, and it's impossible for those kind of institutions to handle more expensive, I would say, technical solutions. And we start to, I have a partner that's an astrophysics and is an inventor, and we basically start to first of all, we talked to the people that was in the elderly houses, families, friends, and people that we met there. We have friends that work in this kind of institutions, and we talked to them about their fears, about their concerns, about the other problems that we're handling. We couldn't visit it because it was impossible. They don't let you. They didn't let you in. It was very dangerous to visit them. So we did it by phone, and we identified there was a clear need to help them to solve this problem. But it was not obviously the solution. What happens is that we start to think about what is the main pain point. The main point was at that stage was how to handle all the waste that they were handling, that they were generating. And the other concern is how to make sure that the environment was a COVID-free environment for the for the medical, people there, for doctors, for nurses, for all these kind of things. And we started thinking in a solution. Very soon we realized that was not a concern only for hospitals, was also for elderly houses, was also for restaurants, for corporate offices, for schools and universities, for even for airlines. And we designed two products that was very cheap in theory, well, not very cheap in price, and it was very disruptive because nothing like that was in the market. And in the same time we were designing the process and the products, we were filing the patents. So this took us 3 months. In 3 months, we designed industrially equipment, we identified the pain points, we identified where the usage could be, and we filed the patents, and we start to do the piloting and some pivoting in these pilots as well. This is possible because it was not in my corporate business. If I tried to do that as fast as we did in my corporate world, it would be absolutely impossible, because I would need to be more concerned with my internal clients than that means with operations, with distribution, with marketing, with all these kind of things, this kind of areas. More concerned about selling them the solution than designing and putting in place a product ready to go to the market very quick. So when I think that the lesson for me is that you cannot apply the same concepts in the same way for corporate innovation than for a startup and a company that is or a scale up. It's not possible to do it, and it's not necessary to do it as well.
Right. I mean, thank you so much for this answer. I mean, definitely what you're saying, that you worked in a corporate and now you're kind of comparing that to the startup environment that you're in. And this is where most of our entrepreneurs are coming from. They are having their corporate jobs and now kind of switching to a startup world, or at least trying to be entrepreneurs, and they have to juggle with this like but at the same time, I mean, one of the things that the three of you also talked about is generally that you designed kind of your personas, or like consumer needs interviews, understood the pain points, did your competitive research and market analysis. That is like how everything is done, right? But the hardest thing for the founders to go through is to find that balance that integrates the needs of the people, the possibilities of the technologies, like the solutions that are possible, as well as the requirements of the business success, like, the profit models, etc. So Priyanka, like, you focus on the business side, on small and medium-sized, right? So would you like to talk a bit about that and draw on, like, how Pinterest ensures making good product judgments and also making the right product calls that fit the financial and business opportunity, and really balance the needs. We need to solve this. We have an amazing idea, but do we have the resources? How?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, ultimately, one of the primary things I feel like is pivotal to Pinterest's success overall is really identifying the pain points of our users and just using that as a starting point. So one of the primary pain points on the business side, one was like setting up your teams for like, what is this metric that we're trying to measure that defines success? So one's like identifying the pain point, and then two is determining what metrics you have for success. And from there, you can start formulating all of these hypotheses to experiment off of. So it's very it's very lean, even at like a corporate level, to really test ideas, especially when you have a large user base. On the business side, though, you don't have as large of a user base, right, as your consumer side. So how do you think about experimentation there? So it starts with, like, for example, with our businesses, we primarily focused on large advertisers. And so we have all these like super heavy tools for our businesses, but we also have a lot of smaller businesses. Let's say an Etsy shop, for example, could be a business on Pinterest, and they're trying to find success through our platform, but all of a sudden you get these heavy analytical and campaign creation tools, and there's this disconnect, right? So how do you solve that problem for that particular user group? So what we did was we really kind of, looked at their behaviors and realized that, hey, what the experience that we're taking our smaller businesses and advertisers through was, we're taking them through our business landing page, or from our business sign up page to our consumer landing page, and then these heavy like tools and actions. And so through that, we were like, there's not enough of a ramp up to get them comfortable with using these heavier tools. We need to meet them in the middle. So what our approach there was, to create an area where smaller businesses care about organic distribution and organic success, as well as paid. So let's find them a customizable, like simple dashboard, right, to view their content that can help make those decisions. So we did a lot of work. We didn't initially say, let's create a dashboard for them, right? We said, okay, they really care about, they're not ready for these heavy tools just yet, so they need something that can kind of help them get used to it, And then two, they also want to be able to look at not just paid content, but also organic. So they need to view how their content is performing on both of those channels. And so we kind of started there. We also know that they love creating content on our platform. So let's also make sure that this surface can help them to achieve those goals in a lightweight way. And so once we kind of identified the pain point and the needs there, we made a landing page for them. So it was essentially a pretty clear case of, who's our audience, these smaller businesses. Their goal is to view this content in a lightweight way, and then go through that experience. So yeah, that's kind of like how we think about things, is really through what are their goals, what are the problems that we're trying to solve, and what can we do in in the simplest way possible. And that's really through a lot of experimentation and making sure that we're providing value early as possible.
Right. So what we're really hearing is you're doing a lot of smaller experiments, iterations, small wins, trying to understand your consumer, and then really designing the whole product. And that's something which I think, even as entrepreneurs, a lot of the times we really are stuck at getting our idea out and not thinking enough of getting about these smaller wins to be able to understand the customer first, and design one interaction first, or design one small aspect of the business first, and then go ahead with it. I mean, great tips there. How about you, Ricardo? You were working in a very matrixed organization, right? So, I mean, how do you go about this the value proposition in terms of making good product judgments? Like you have 3, 4, 5 ideas on the table, which is the picking up in terms of financial viability and business opportunity. Yeah, if you have any tips to share there, that would be great.
I think that everything is at the end is quite basic. I think that at the end, the success or not success of an innovation is related to the P&L, okay, to the economic benefits. So the point at the end is that the value that you have to create has to be superior to the price that you are asking for this product. So I think that at the end, there is a lot of work behind the innovation, but there is not a lot of rocket. So at the end, it's a process that is quite logic. It's a process that starts from the discovery. So I mean, what is the problem that you want to achieve? What is the insights that you can find with the consumer or with the market in general? So what is the situation? What is the pain point? I think that the biggest pain point that you can discover, the biggest financial opportunity that you will be able to have. So pain point, discover a pain point is the key, the first step. The second step is once that you have a pain point or a possible problem to solve, is to design some possible opportunities or some possible solutions to this pain point. And at the end, you don't need to make very expensive prototypes, whatever. I mean, there are the most successful prototypes that we have defined have been just in a paper with a pen. So we have defined a prototype, we have presented that to some customers, and the customer has said, this is a great idea, please, when I can buy that, because I want to have it. So discover what is the pain point, design first possible solutions to this pain point. And I think that the key point is to validate. I mean, I like a lot the Edison claim that he discovered the bulb, but he tried 1,000 times until he discovered the final product that he wanted to do. So validate. And once that you have the validation, you have to take the decision. I mean, it is really worth or not. I mean, the financial benefit that you can achieve with this solution is higher than the cost of the solution or not. I think that today is very, very exciting times, because after COVID, everything is changing, and everything is changing very, very, very fast. So there are a lot of new needs in the market, or unmet needs in the market, and our role in a corporate or in a not corporate, I think that it's also possible to innovate in the corporate, big corporate organization, is really to discover what are these pain points and to be able to develop new innovative ways or new imaginative ways to solve these pain points, and to do all of this with a very, very economical or financial attractiveness.
Right. Thank you, Ricardo. So, Victor, I mean, carrying on the conversation from Ricardo, what he's saying is really discover the pain points, and you kind of about that before in the conversation. So, what is also very interesting is that, you know, there's this philosophy that when we are discovering the pain points and designing solutions and prototypes, it's always very interesting to co-create with your consumers, with your users, the prototyping and the entire process, as well as with your stakeholders, you know, to get that IKEA effect. So, would you have any ideas on that now to share, which worked for you in your journey, where you involved the co-created the solution with the stakeholders themselves, or with the consumers or users themselves? Would you like to share that?
Well, yes. I think I agree a lot with what Ricardo was saying. It doesn't have to be a very complicated product since the very beginning. Actually, is to build up of what there is already in the market that you can leverage in order to bring up your final product. I think that to try to invent everything from the very beginning is very difficult, because it will take you a lot of time if you want to, if you want to come with a feasible solution. It's better to identify those pain points, and then don't try to solve all those pain points, but the most important pain points. What are the key pain points that I want to focus? And from there on, define the kind of solution that you can bring into the market with the minimal complexity. And once you have done this, look for partners, suppliers, for example. They have something that is similar to what you are thinking for and build based on that. Because if not, it will take you a long time to come up with something that you still need to test. And suppliers are, what we have found is they are very much willing to, to work with you if your solution is really interesting. And that's what we found out in this pandemic, and this 3 months that I was talking about. We were very lucky because we absolutely, my partner is an expert in patents. So we filed the patents. And once we have the patents filed, and obviously it was not, the first 2 patents, we had to just drop them because we have to change them. Once we did the first pivoting, but the other ones help us to go into the supplier market and ask them if they could give us their product, because we wanted to build our solution upon their product. And they all were very happy because they never thought about that market. They never thought that with their product, they could go to another completely different market and to bring and generate value for their companies. So I think that partnering with suppliers is key to accelerate the innovation process. Very, very important. The second one is you have to have a clear idea from all the solutions that you want to bring to solve the problems, focus on 2 or 3, no more, because if not, you will waste a lot of time. And don't think to come up with a perfect solution. It's not worth it.
Completely agree with that. I completely agree. I think that you have said something that is very important, is what is the minimum complexity to solve a problem. So the point at the end of the day is to create value, is not to have happy engineers. So yeah, completely agree.
Exactly.
Right. So we get it, lean out and test and iterate and prototype and iterate and keep learning. It's the message that we are getting from all of you. Victor, you brought in a very important point while talking about the patent, right? That you have the prototypes, you have already the technology which is patented, so the robot that you have that's already patented. I think it's a very interesting thing for entrepreneurs to kind of understand that when they're coming up with new ideas or new technologies, on the process, when is that when they think that, okay, now I think it's really something which is disruptive and I should go ahead and patent the idea or the technology, because that involves money, that involves, a lot of, legal advice as well. So you don't want to just go for any idea, right? So what is a good way to figure out, like, this looks disruptive, now I should go perhaps for the stage of copywriting, patenting, etc. Can you shed some light on that?
The question is for who? For me?
Yes, Victor. Yeah.
Sorry?
Yes, Victor. I said that you went ahead and did the patenting of your idea, right? And the technology itself. So when did you think that it was disruptive enough to get the patent done and kind of protect it before I go to the suppliers?
That's a very good question. The innovation process, as Ricardo was mentioning, it's not like a roadmap, clear roadmap. I mean, there's not a highway. You need to be discovering in the middle of the jungle, and then you make mistakes. You find a tree that is bigger that you can cut, and you have to go back 3 steps and then move it to the right and then the left. There is not one solution to find out. It's a lot of, I think that you need to have very open mind, and fall in love with the problem, but never with the technology, because you might think that your technology is the best one, and then if that doesn't solve the problem, you are in a deep problem. Obviously, you have to have some knowledge, to bring it to the table. That's for sure. But the kind of solutions that might help to solve a specific problem might be different of what you are thinking in the very beginning. Pivoting is very important in that. what we did is before the moment when we decided to bring it into the table the suppliers was once we have checked the idea in paper with the clients, explaining them that what was going to be the idea about, but not very sophisticated enough to explain the concept. And then second, it was very important for us to have the patents, because the idea was so revolutionary that we didn't want someone to, successful suppliers to pick up on, on the idea and then they build the solution. So we needed to have filed the solutions, the patents, and we have to have I would say, the green light, fussy green light of the client. And then one thing that we did as well is to have a design, a minor design, industrial design, in order to make it easy to explain to the suppliers, this solution. So when I'm talking about the clients and users, sometimes our users are final users, and sometimes our clients, potential clients. At this stage, we didn't make a big difference because all of them were very concerned with the post-COVID pandemic, and they all were having a lot of fear of become contaminated. I don't know if I answer your question or not.
Yes. I mean, I kind of just what you're saying is that the right idea would get it patented or copyrighted when it's something which is going to serve the needs of the people, and maybe you have perhaps tested it enough at least with a pilot, sort of a thing. This is what I understand, right? So I mean, another thing that would be interesting to talk about that intersects with design and human-centeredness is storytelling, right? Storytelling is that like kind of a low resolution kind of deciding and showing that the end solution, what it could look like. That's another part of innovation cycle, and it's something that helps cultivate understanding of the context, right? Priyanka, would you like to talk about any time when Pinterest uses storytelling to in the early stage of an idea or a new feature or a business that helps the business the people get on board? Would you like to talk about that, because that's something our entrepreneurs would also be going through a lot?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of times, like I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of experimentation at Pinterest, especially being on the growth side of things, and business growth. We really think about which ideas we should do, prioritize based on like what we're trying to goal on. And so in terms of user-centeredness, I think it's really important when you do have an idea to also think about what the user problem would be for a particular idea. In terms of storytelling, I think that's when it comes into play, because I think oftentimes we're so focused on the solution, and we're so focused on a particular idea that it kind of gets away from like what is that unmet need that we're actually trying to solve for. And so something that I have to do a lot of times when we're thinking about making a pretty big step change within our experience on the business side, especially, I really try to focus on really looking at the data and trying to tell a story from the user problem side, from what that data is telling me about that user's journey, and really kind of prioritizing like what behaviors that I'm trying to change within the user through that. So yeah, I think like one particular thing that I'm relatively proud of that storytelling helped with was really like from the design perspective, like setting a vision. So we had like a sign up flow for our businesses, and it was hideous, y'all. Like, I don't know if there was even a designer designing it, but there was like 15 steps for this sign up flow with really heavy actions. And I was trying, we had like a 95% completion rate, which I was just like, this sounds nuts to me. Why are we having such high completion rates of the sign up flow? Like businesses must be really trying hard to do this. And when I started looking at the data, I realized that everyone was hitting the skip button. So we weren't actually getting the signals that we needed to help guide them across our product to make them successful. So while, you know, product would be like, hey, I think it's fine, we have a lot of people signing up, I'm like, what does retention look like, right? And how do we actually collect the signals that we need to really help them retain long term? And so I started kind of doing some vision work and telling a story through showing our extremely difficult you know, sign up flow, showing what potentially the sign up flow could be, and really trying to find that sweet spot of getting the signals that we need collected, and telling that story, and also using qualitative data to tell that story as well. So I think it's really trying to bring all of those things together to unpack like what's really going on.
Right. So what you're really talking about is that, you know, you were just not thinking about the product feature itself or the entire sign up flow itself, but more talk about, you know, how it might look like and behave like for a user, right? And that's the storytelling and journey for the stakeholders themselves who are designing it, as well as for the consumers when you're reaching out to them in terms of, you know, how it could look like. Ricardo, for you, when you're a marketer at heart, right? And also I know that with Kushal as a brand, you've used excellent storytelling, where you really dig emotions of people to make them buy a product. So one is not, you know, creating a product, and one is then selling it through storytelling as well, right? And that's something which is also going to be very interesting for our customers, for our audience. How, you know, what is the of that storytelling at Kushal or at Invacare for you guys?
I think that this is a very important point. It's not just how you develop the product, but how also you sell the product, no? Because the point, especially in this COVID time, is that when you can really touch the product, and you have to take into account that we are speaking, in my case, about disabled users, that is people that normally have very difficult to go to the street. So in the COVID time, it's even more difficult, and they don't want to leave home. So the challenge to bring the product to them is really quite important. So this is the reason, because it is not only the challenge to how you develop things, but also how you ensure that these are the things that the user needs. So it's important to involve them in the development process, but also once that the product is developed and is launched, how you can ensure that your end users knows and can touch a product that physically they can touch, because they can go to the street. No, so this is the reason, because our company has made a very important evolution or revolution in the last 4-6 months, especially in terms of visualizers, in terms of developing new digital tools in order that the user can interact with the product, can see the product, can see all the details that are behind, in order that the product can be closer to them. So I think that at the end of the day, just as a summary, is very important that when you develop a product, you involve the end users, but it's very important also that you communicate to them in each point, because I think that to innovate is to fail. So it's very important that you fail. And the only way really to learn is every time that you fail, every time that you learn something, and you have a better product and a better communication campaign to your users.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Victor, seems to be, yeah, Victor. So, I mean, we need you to unmute yourself, but yeah, so I mean, I know you use storytelling a lot, and storytelling is in the blood of people who are studying at Stanford Lead. So how do you use how did you use storytelling for your first selling, let's say, first selling of the product, to get your first customers? Oh, Victor, we can't hear you. You are on mute.
Sorry, I was getting out of battery, so I run for the charger. Regarding the use of storytelling, I can tell you that probably one of the best tools that I learned at least in innovation. There are 4 pillars: corporate innovation, the corporate strategy. The first one has to do with governance.
Victor, your voice is breaking.
Strategy one is the processes and piloting. Sorry?
Your voice is breaking.
Hear me?
We can't hear you. Your voice is breaking, Victor.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah,
I cannot hear you.
Yes, you can.
You cannot hear me?
Now I can.
Ah, yeah. Okay. I don't know how much did you heard, but I can do an abstract. I think storytelling is essential for innovation as a tool. Essential. It's one of the 4 pillars to have a good innovation. It helps to create a culture of innovation. It helps to create heroes within the organization, and it helps to communicate what sometimes are technological, solutions that nobody understands, to explain them in a very simple manner. And I actually hired a specialist in the storytelling. At the beginning, the guys from human resources didn't understand. The guys from communication, didn't want that, because they were telling me, why do you want a specialist in storytelling? We have here a lot of marketing guys. And I said, no, that's not the skill I want. So, but once we put it in place, we use it as a tool to communicate every single innovation, corporate innovation, that has a high technology content. For example, digital twins. Many people didn't even know the term of digital twin. And I didn't want to go and explain that technologically. I want to show them what is a digital twin. And we explained what a digital twin it is, but the guy that used that in the plant in Oman explains the benefits from what is a digital twin. So we started to use it for highly technological projects for the company. And always the idea since the beginning was choose the hero. The hero is not innovation. It's nobody from innovation. It's nobody technical. It's the user that is helping to implement that product or that service within the organization. And in many times, even the client. Sometimes we are inviting the clients to be heroes of our innovations.
Right. So what you're really saying again is that users are the most important part of the entire innovation journey of your business journey, of your entrepreneurial journey, and not just interviewing them, as well as also kind of craft stories around them to be able to make them understand that it's designed for them, the solution is designed for them, right?
And if I can add something, Depti, I think that the user is very important, but also the prototypes that you give to the user. Because I don't know, Victor, what you think, but for us, there is a lot of times that the user doesn't know really what they need. So you need to give to them some kind of prototypes or some kind of idea and make the question, what do you think? Do you think that this is worth or not? So I think that to have the user in the center of all the innovation process, and at the same time to feed this user with prototypes or with ideas and to see if they are useful or not.
Right,
I
right.
agree 100%.
Totally agree with that as well. I have one question from the audience. I mean, we have some questions that I think we have answered. One of our participants says that how many customers do we need to have interviewed to get their pain points and feedback before I develop MVP and like a solution? And how do I identify that the added particular functionality or add or I think this question is asked very often, that how many should I actually interview? What is the right size? So Priyanka, would you like to get a take on that?
Sure. So I can only speak to product design in particular. And from my experience working in a product design consultancy, a product development consultancy in the past, but essentially like one, experimentation is key. So like I think I commented earlier, I love like lean UX and really just being able to have kind of a normal cadence of talking to not necessarily customers, but potential users. I think that that's pretty key for product market fit, is saying, hey, like, I think one of the projects that I worked on in the past was with Harley Davidson and exploring like a potential ride experience for their riders. And so what we did was, we spoke to a not a large population, but a fairly small, group. We kind of said, hey, we're starting to get the same pattern with this user group. So, for some folks, it could be 5 to 6 people that you start that fit that particular group and go through there. But you have to have a regular cadence, and you have to start refining, like you go into problem formulation and then you start refining that. So just being iterative in your research approach can help. I think also if you have, yes, 10 to 15 works. I think that might even be too much personally. I would say more on 7 to 10, but yeah, I think from there, just maintaining that cadence is good.
Right. I think one of the things that also works very well is having this quantitative and qualitative aspect of it, like, really having a few user groups, consumer groups to interview, but also like a survey, right? And then compare quantitative and qualitative set as well. So maybe, Ricardo, do you have one last point to, say something to that, and then maybe continue?
No, I agree with what Priyanka has said. I think that in the first, the innovation process is discover, design, validate. Okay. In the discover phase, to understand what is the pain point, what is the problem that you are going to solve, is more a quantitative analysis. So I think that everything that is below, I don't know, 40, 50 interviews is nothing. So in the discover phase, you really need to understand the problem. So you need to have some people, but in the validated phase, you need really to see what you are trying to sell has sense or not. So in the validated phase, I would say that 3, 4, 5 people maximum is okay. So I would say that you need different people in the different phases.
Sure. Victor, do you have as well some last tips for our audience? Maybe a minute or so.
Yeah. What caused the communication with you? Can you repeat the question?
Yes, so basically, how many people are normally customers are good for interviews, customer interviews? What is the user base which one should be actually experimenting on?
I would say that it depends on the kind of innovation that you are bringing to the table. For example, we were planning or defining I will give you 2 examples. One of them was to launch a service for car sharing in the city, Madrid. And for that, we needed to have a largely based, opinion of users depending on the areas, different areas of the city, to see what were the key factors that they were considering to use car sharing. So we identify focus groups depending on the age, depending on the economical, on the part of the living. It was a fairly amount of people there. On the other side, we did an application for 20,000 employees within the company.
Right.
And what we did was to identify. Sorry.
Yeah.
What we did in that case was to identify a representative group of the different sectors that were going to be the users of that application. And there were 10. And with that 10, we did the interview and we did all the analysis of identifying the problems and then developing solutions. We asked them to prototype, to give a prototype, to work together with a prototype. And I'm not talking about sophisticated people. We're talking about the people that was drivers that drive the garbage truck, or cleaning ladies, or people that were working in hospitals doing working in security and things like that. So we brought a number of people there, 10 people, and what we did was we did them a lot of questions, and we got the answers, and we told them, why don't you go with your peers, with your coworkers, and ask the same question to another 10 people. So at the end, we had 100 people, with the answers, and very open, because it was not us that were asking, it was their peers. And we identified very interesting things about the app. The initial hypothesis that human resources, was using to develop that app were absolutely invalid once we checked it and brought together the information from the people that were going to be using that application. And that was very, very interesting. And the other thing is that the look and feel, the experience, the user experience of how this application should work, not technologically, but from the user experience, we asked them, go back to your family and friends and bring up in paper, with drawings or whatever you want, how would you like this to be defined? How would you like it to be designed? And it was incredible, because these guys came, they were working with their families on the Sunday, just bringing something that was their job. We're happy because these people, these are the typical person that they're never heard, they don't have a sound and voice in the company. And suddenly somebody comes and asks them, please, we need your help. Would you like to help us? And it was a fantastic effort.
Right.
So in terms of how many people did you interview, was 10 people in this case, and another 10 people, and we had 100 people giving opinion, and I would say, very sincere opinion.
Great. Thank you so much, Victor. That's I think one of the best tips that you've given here, that how to accelerate your interviews as well, not just do it yourself, but use people to use them. And also another thing that I'm hearing is be inclusive in your consumer interviews, that, just not a few people, but really spread it across. Thank you so much. I think there were some great insights from all of you, Priyanka, Victor, as well as Ricardo. Thanks a lot. I hope, our audience got a great insights from this as well in their journeys. I would just like to say thank you to all of you, and thanks to the audience as well. And thanks to Stanford Rebuild for letting us open this to the entire Rebuild audience. All right. Good evening.